Are there any real benefits to one rep max training when it comes to trying to build as much muscle as possible? Now, you may see in the gym, whether it's guys, girls, whatever, lifting weights for one rep. Clearly, that is a sign, or at least one sign, of strength. How much mass can you move in a particular direction one time? But is that of any use? Is that of any use to anyone, for any reason, in any circumstance? That's what we're going to be talking about in this episode of the show. Because when it comes to specific lifts, no one really asks what's your one rep max of a bicep curl, unless they're a little bit weird. But a lot of people talk about what's their one rep max for a bench press, a deadlift, a squat, a shoulder press, the classic like big four exercises. Now, in terms of talking about your one rep max, now if you are a powerlifter, clearly in competitions and powerlifting movements, a one rep max kind of matters. But let's talk about it more in terms of building muscle. I'm no powerlifter, I'm no powerlifting coach. So I'm going to talk about one rep maxes in the context of building muscle. Now, if you are doing one rep maxes and your goal is to specifically build muscle, you've got it fucking wrong, because it has zero benefit on every conceivable level to do a one rep max if your goal is to build muscle. It serves zero purpose, only than to satisfy your own ego. And if you are really driven by your own ego and what you want to tell people, then again, you've got it fucking wrong. Because first of all, no one gives a shit how much you can bench press. No one gives a shit how much you can squat. No one gives a shit how much you can shoulder press. No one really fucking cares. Because what difference does it make? Again, when you think about what is happening with muscles in particular exercises, particularly when it comes to building muscle, again, we're not talking about strength, we're not talking about powerlifting here, we're talking about building muscle. You're trying to create tension on the bone, you're trying to create this pull, this additional tension that is going to force that muscle to work as hard as fucking possible and to adapt and grow and get bigger. That's what you're trying to do. Now that comes, as we know, from progressive overload. So over time, you're progressively increasing the stress, either through the amount of weight you're using, the amount of repetitions, the sets, the intensity, the execution of those different exercises. You're using those tools and techniques to increase that pull, that mechanical tension on the bone over time. And we know from the research that in terms of building muscle, the rep range is quite broad. Now, assuming that you push everything to the same level of intensity, you can build muscle anywhere between 4 reps and 30 reps. Now, therefore, that should kind of like make the penny drop that a one rep max doesn't fit anywhere in that rep range. Even as rep range as broad as that, a one rep max does not fit in there. So if you are programming in one rep maxes into your training on a regular basis, you really think about, what is the reason why I'm doing this? Is it because this is going to build much more muscle than if I just did a regular set, say of 6 to 8 reps, 8 to 10 reps, whatever? Is this one rep max doing anything but satisfying my own ego so I can put some shitty picture of some shitty form on Instagram so that people can go, hey dude, it's fucking amazing because you lifted that 200 kilos of deadlift with hugely horrific form that nearly looked like you broke your spine into, but yeah, bravo, bravo. You did a one rep max that no one gives a shit about. So really think about why you are doing these one rep maxes. Now, you might see in a lot of training programming, intensity measured as a percentage of one rep max. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do a one rep max in order to figure that out. So if you are lifting 100 kilos and that's your theoretical one rep max, you might see programming that says do 80% of your one rep max, which is obviously 80 kilos in that situation. But you might be thinking, well, how do I figure out what the 1 rep max is so then I can figure out what the training intensity needs to be? Well, actually, if you go online, if you type in, 1 rep max calculator and things like that, there's easy and simple ways in which you can figure that out. So for example, you would take an exercise like a bench press and you would do 10 repetitions. For example, you would see how much weight you can lift for those 10 repetitions before you get to failure. So you'd keep testing that. You're testing your 10 rep max, let's say, for example. Then you can put into the calculator, okay, I did this weight for 10 reps. What is my theoretical 1 rep max? From there, you can then judge whereby you set intensity. If that's the way that you are setting up your program. That's not the way I set up my programs, but that is a way. Like I've said before on different episodes of the show, when it comes to programming, there are lots of ways that you can do it and get it right. But there are also some horrific ways, but we won't talk about those. So judging your intensity off of your theoretical 1 rep max is perfectly logical. Setting up your training off of theoretical other rep maxes is also perfectly logical. Again, there's more different ways to do it. If you are interested in that theoretical 1 rep max, then I would search for one of those calculators. But when it comes to hypertrophy, when it comes to building muscle, whether you're a man or a woman, really going off of 1 rep maxes and actually doing those 1 rep maxes on a regular basis is just not necessary. It's not going to build any muscle. It's just boosting your own ego, and it's probably just going to increase your risk of injury, because guaranteed when you're doing an absolute 1 rep max, you are probably going to have to sacrifice a little bit of form somewhere along the way. And again, you are increasing your risk of injury. So when you see people doing it, don't necessarily think, wow, that's fucking cool, I wish I could do that. Think, yeah, that doesn't suit my goal, I'm not going to do that. So if you're building these 1 rep maxes into your training and your goal is to build muscle, stop. It's horseshit. Stop doing it. Base the weight you need to lift off of something else and work from there, because this 1 rep max shit just really isn't necessary. Now, I hope you found that useful. Hopefully it gave you a bit of a wake-up call if you are a 1 rep maxer on a regular basis. Hopefully this is now kind of giving you a bit of insight into why that might not be the best route to go down with your training. And if it has, I would love to hear from you. If you come and visit me on Instagram, it's at iron_paradise_fitness. But for now, all I'm going to say is thanks so much for listening. Keep living the lean life, and I'll see you for the next episode of the show.